All right, welcome everybody. This is a special live stream. So John from Tesla Owner Silicon Valley just interviewed Sandy Monroe. Sandy is part of Monroe and Associates, and as you know, he was given a special tour of Texas Gigafactory very recently. He made some statements about Tesla's Optimus Tesla bot. He said that he believes it's going to be in production line in 2024. He said that he thinks that the Tesla bot can actually do anything that a human or employee can do. So let's listen to each of these clips. We have Scott Walter here with us. He is an co-founder of 2X robotics companies in the past, and he and I have done many videos comparing Tesla bot with other companies. But we want to listen to these clips and try to see what exactly we heard Sandy Monroe say, and try to pierce out what we think is actually true. Let's go through that right now. Let's listen to the first clip.
5 to robots, now those robots will be able to see in the back of their head. Not too many people have figured that one out, but I'm telling you what, that is a big deal. To know that the robot can see back.
Actually, I'm going to go ahead. I think I picked that should be the last one. We'll listen to this one first.
And based on what I saw, and I am an automation engineer, I had several patents. Well, I didn't get them. The companies that I worked for got them. I was a chief engineer of Valiant Machine Tool, which was a huge organization. It used to be family owned and whatnot. The family decided to get out. But anyways, and I was I was the lead for automation and automatic feed and also automatic testing for engine division. And then I got promoted out of there. But at the end of the day, I can tell you right now, what I saw would allow me to do anything that falls into 3Ds. And I think that, in essence, I can see almost, based on what I saw with that one video that he wouldn't give me, I can guarantee you that there's nothing on the assembly line that a man could do that this thing couldn't do. And that's no bullshit. And that comes straight from, like you talked about cogs, and I don't know. Well, I do know this, it'll do anything if it's the same as what I saw.
Crazy.
Yeah.
So Scott, what do you think when you see what I saw, that the Tesla bot can do anything that a man can do? What was your reaction?
It sounds like he must have seen more than we've seen in that video. That he's actually seen it doing things on the line, and he's very well aware of what you would actually want a worker to do on the line for assembly. So when Sandy says that, he used to work for Valiant, which is like a machine tool company, I know them well. They're over in Windsor and have some other locations. They support a lot of the OEMs in the Detroit area. They're a tier 1 supplier. I've done work for Valiant in the past. They're a user of our software. They definitely know a lot about automation. So if Sandy's coming from the background, he knows what he's talking about. He doesn't just tear the stuff down. He also knows how that stuff was built in the first place. So he's quite familiar with the assembly line process. And we've always talked about this kind of this low-hanging fruit. A lot of the things that you're doing on the assembly line are not necessarily as difficult as you think they may be for a human. That's the whole idea of the assembly line, is to make sure to keep it simple. Keep it as simple as possible so people can actually do these repetitive tasks in the cycle time that they're allowed to do. Now, there's always going to be some that are a little bit challenging, that need a little bit of dexterity, but the majority of it, you want to make sure it's very, very easy for a person to be able to do repetitively, do it 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, 50 weeks of the year. And so he's probably pretty confident, and I've been confident on what I've seen that it should be able to do it. We just haven't seen it do anything more than sort a couple Lego blocks, and also be able to, do the swap of the egg. But that seems like they were probably holding a lot back on what they're doing. And of course, we talked about the other night, and we speculated that there's a lot of room in Fremont on the SNX lines right now. There's a lot of time there. They're running one shift. So you got all those other shifts that Optimus could be going in there. And I also had dinner tonight with someone that has some knowledge from people insiders they've heard of, that seem to think that Optimus is already being used on these assembly lines. Can't verify that myself. It is one of those things that you're never quite sure, but it's almost like this game of telephone. It's come from a couple of people, but very confident that they are already doing it. And I'm assuming that they're doing it kind of in a testing. It's not like they're really doing it in a production kind of scenario, but they're really going out there and doing stuff. That might be what Sandy's talking about. Maybe he's seen a little bit more, because he didn't he indicate something about a video they wouldn't let him have.
Yeah, I was going to ask you that. Didn't you see him and talk to him when he was at Gigafactory? And so he was given a video, and then they wouldn't let him keep it.
That's what I know. He just mentioned something there. I don't know if there was something earlier in that podcast he had where they was talking about some sort of video there. So it may have been possible that he was shown a video that he was not allowed to take with him. And whether that's what he saw at the gig, because I'm not aware that Optimus is actually in Texas. Could be, maybe that they brought them there. I would assume that they're all Palo Alto, Fremont kind of area. It's not something that you would see there unless they actually brought some and are starting to use them on the ramp up of some of these lines. But that's the first I've heard news of anything like that. And it's the first that it's kind of leaked out there. It's possible they've shown a little more. It's also possible that he's had a tour of. Now, I think he was talking about just what he saw in Texas, correct? He's not talking about having gone to Fremont.
I'm telling you. Yeah, we have to listen carefully to his words.
Yes.
But it says he keeps repeating based on what I saw. Now, is he saying that means he saw it physically in the Texas Gigafactory working already? Because you'll see in another clip that I'll show, he talks about seeing the bot put a bolt together with two metal. And he goes, that's incredible. If he can do that, he can do anything. And so wait till we get to that part.
If he sees it like that, then maybe he either saw it live or he definitely saw a video showing that. Which may be sort of some of the behind the scenes things that he's had the opportunity to see that we have not been able to see publicly. Now, for those of you who are just kind of wondering about the quality of my video, once again, this is something that last minute, and I had to find a place where people are not asleep, and I'm not going to be waking them up, and I'm in the back seat of a car with really bad lighting, so I apologize. A little bit disheveled. I wasn't quite ready for this, but this is what happens when there's breaking news.
Breaking news, and you need to be here for this. So let's go listen to another part of his clips. Yes, it is true that, that's part of the thing, right? Are we reading too much in Sandy's comment? Is he talking about the latest video we have? This part is true too. Later in the clip, he started talking about that machine gun video, which is clearly CGI, but he didn't know if it was CGI. So it's hard to know, but let's, again, listen to what he's saying, and we'll kind of decide together.
Optimus would actually be on the Tesla car manufacturing line.
Who's asking these questions?
I'm thinking it's going to happen. I think it's going to happen this year.
Wow, crazy predictions.
Well, it's going to be. I mean, it's not crazy. I mean, I saw what I saw.
No, not crazy.
It's
okay. Again, he was asked the question, when is the Optimus going to be in the production line? He said probably later this year, 2024. And he goes, based on what I saw what I saw. Okay. Is he talking about the video that we all saw? Is he talking about something that he's physically seeing? Let's keep playing this. Yeah.
Well,
I think a lot sooner than probably most people would think.
Well, yes.
Well, not if they're paying attention, right? Because if you look at
it doesn't have any
progress of the last 2 years of what they've done with the robot, you could see that they are leaps and bounds ahead of like most robotics. Like Sandy said, there's people that are great at hands, and there's people that are great at this, and people that are great at that. Well, somehow Tesla's just leapfrogging everybody with what they're doing in just the past 2 years. It's phenomenal.
Well, let me give you an example. When people talk about robots, let me rephrase that, up until Optimus, but anyways, when people talk to me about robots, I say they're they're blind, one-armed idiots, and that's what they are. They usually only got one arm, they can't see, and they pick things up and put things down. An idiot. That's what they are, blind, one-armed idiots. This is not a blind, one-armed idiot. Okay, this thing, I mean, you saw, I don't know whether the thing I saw was.
Yeah, he starts talking about the CGI thing. Okay, blind one-armed idiots, that's actually the companies you co-founded, the industrial robots.
Yep.
Go ahead.
It's true. It's a very accurate description. They're blind, one-armed idiots. They repeatedly do the exact same thing, and that thing had better be exactly where it's supposed to be. So when it goes down there to do the operation, it's operating on it. It's expecting it to be there without actually seeing it, and it has no ability to think for itself if conditions change. That's the current state of the art with industrial robots, and Optimus is definitely very different in that it's not blind. It's able to think. It's not one arm. It's multiple armed. It's able to go around. It's got a lot of dexterity. So he sees that there is a paradigm shift on how automation is being done, and that it really is a substitute for the human worker. It's very, very close to being able to do that. Now, we've speculated also just the other day that, are we going to start seeing this on the production line in 2024? And, we really think we're going to see it. It's just that we're being very careful not to be overly optimistic on it, but we really think it's a possibility because we've seen enough that shows that technically it looks like it could be done. We are seeing hints that it could be done and statements that are being made. One statement, it could start to be doing useful work in the factory in 2024. That was a statement made back in June. And it did not seem like an outlandish statement to me at that time. And it still doesn't seem like an outlandish statement to me. And I think, we still have 12 months for that prediction to become true. And I think it will happen sooner than that. That is my personal opinion. And to hear it from Sandy, I think gives me a bit more confidence that I'm not the lone wolf out there thinking that. Or Herbert, I should say that you and me aren't the two lone wolves, out there. Or maybe three, because we know Randy kind of also feels the same way about that. So, yes, I think it is definitely possible, and it's not outlandish that we would start to see it in some form on the production line. When it takes over production line, that's something else. We can have arguments about how much, but I think we really are going to be seeing it in some places. And like I say, I would not be surprised if it's already doing useful work on the X and S lines. It's just that maybe not at the scale that you would normally think of, like it's a full shift. It's truly doing all the production we would like to see.
Yeah, and the other thing we should remind folks is that when Elon was talking about the bot, he did say that by November, which is a month ago, he's expecting that the actuators would be ready, the Tesla design actuators would be ready for mass scaling. And so that was a shocker to me because, okay, people are going, how, Tesla bot won't happen for 3 years, 5 years, long time from now, you guys are being too optimistic. Well, he's talking about once the Tesla actuators have been finalized, which he thinks is November, which is a month ago, it's going to be ready for mass scaling. Mm-hmm. So am I overreading that might mean that it's maybe not be, we're not talking hundreds of thousands of bots, but we're certainly talking hundreds, right?
Yeah. And maybe Elon missed his prediction by 2 weeks. He said November, around November. And definitely, we saw that bot video. The bot video dropped in December, which means it probably was made in November, which means in November, they had the first ones with the Tesla designed actuators, meaning the ones that they want to start mass producing.
That's what it looks like. Producing.
So they are there. So they must be having a line spooled up that's starting to produce the actual design for it, which means they are probably ready for mass production. And like I said, we don't see anything that prevents it from being able to be mass produced, except, really spooling up the actuators. Everything else is very, very simple. The battery, they already are producing the batteries. Yeah. They're already producing the FSD chips. They can already buy the cameras from wherever. Most of the cabling systems that are in there, that the harnessing, they can buy from stuff. The castings, there's like super efficient ways of doing it, and there's still old school ways that you can pump out the numbers that you need without a whole lot of effort. So I just don't see anything that's difficult to manufacture on that bot right now.
To manufacture, but the rate limiting step is the brains, and can it watch video to learn and then be able to do the task as designed, and even accommodating any changes that happens to the environment. Let's continue watching more of this video of Sandy Munro
at the Gigafactory. Totally blew me away. There wasn't guys walking around with machine guns and cowboy hats, but I will tell you that what I saw totally blew me away as far as what a robot can do.
Okay, let me pause right there. He's talking about the Gigafactory. At the Gigafactory, what I saw totally blew me away as for what this robot can do. So
yes, that's quite the statement. So without enough context. I'm not sure if he was talking about that or if he was talking about maybe some of the other robotic processes that they had that they were thinking of doing. So it's possible he may have been talking about the industrial robot line that they are doing a certain amount of automation. And I think he got the full tour. Let's remember that. Most of the people only saw part of the line. He got to see a lot of the good stuff back behind there when he was walked around with Lars. So Lars showed him quite a bit, and I don't think everything that they saw made it onto that Monroe footage that we all saw about 2 weeks ago.
Let's keep watching him. Oops.
Yeah. And by the way, the other thing that I like about this robot, there's a lot of dangerous situations for our warfighters. I'd rather see that. And by the way, I don't know if you're aware of it. That's what Leonardo da Vinci wanted. He wanted to make an armored robot that would fight the wars in Europe, so people didn't have to die. And that's a fact. I got a little video of what it would do, and he thought that success was right around the corner. Thing would it could stagger, walk, stop, swing a sword, stagger, walk, stop, and then you had to go and wind it up. I mean, woohoo! I mean, it's like it was crazy. But at the end of the day, he figured that he was gonna solve that problem. Now with this thing, yeah, the robot can see in back of its head, can sense what's going on around him. He can hear much better than a human can, see better than a human can, and probably think faster in those kinds of situations where some people freeze up under, in combat. This never will seize up, never. This could be a really, like I say, it's in a whole bunch. Doctors, sorry, not doctors, but hospitals. I can see a use for them. Situations with bombs and things, all kinds of stuff.
Well, before we go to the public questions, I want.
So here's Sandy Monroe talking about Leonardo da Vinci. So he got a little off track, but then he comes back and says this thing is amazing. So Sandy's not the kind of person who's going to exaggerate, is he? Because that's his job, is to look at exactly what the capabilities are.
Right. Sandy has a lot of credibility, and the last thing he's going to do is burn his credibility by exaggerating what he saw or the capabilities are there. And he's been right when a lot of people thought he was crazy. Remember, he was talking about castings way before anyone else was. And here we are. Everyone is doing castings, and so he's always been a little bit of a rebel, and but also at the same time kind of a trailblazer by telling people that this is what you have to do, and if you don't do it, then your product is going to suffer and your margins are going to go up, and there are better ways to do manufacturing. So I think you do have to listen to Sandy's words. We have to make sure that we are able to put them in the proper context, because we weren't there, and Sandy has been shown a lot of things, and it's very easy to sort of mix up maybe a lot of things that you've seen to make sure that you get the sequences and everything put together right. But based on what he's saying, I think it helps confirm the thesis that we've had, that Optimus is close to production, if not in production. The production of the bot, as well as maybe being used in production, and clearly some demonstration modes or some test modes, and maybe getting ready to go into real production usage.
So we've got Hans Nelson joining us. Hans was physically at that interview with Sandy Monroe just this morning. Hans, we just watched a couple clips of that interview, and we're trying to piece out whether or not, what was he referring to? Was Sandy saying that I physically was in the Giga Texas factory and what I saw or that the bot can do there? Or was he referring to some video that he might have watched? Could have been the same video that we all saw. What was your interpretation?
Yeah, it was hard to parse all of that. My interpretation was he was saying that the video that he saw or that what he was referring to was a video that he saw. And then that was the thing where I wasn't sure, like you said, is that the same video that they just released? Because that video released on December 1st, right? And he would have seen that video prior. So this would have been when he was in Texas. So he probably saw a pre-release of the same video and it was, he was still under embargo and couldn't talk about it. That's my guess. And so, I don't know that he's seen any videos that we haven't seen, or maybe he has. That could be, someone definitely could have taken video of testing that they're doing in house. And I was a little bit nervous to really try and drill down and hijack that entire interview
Yeah,
on
of
that
course he
one
did.
topic.
Well, but there's two things that point to the fact that he might have seen it. One is in one of the clips I just showed. He said, I was at the Gigafactory, and based on what I saw, this is what I believe. And then watch this this clip here where he talks about, if the bot he actually saw the bot putting a screw together, two metal pieces together. Let's watch this to see whether or not that's
Well,
the
as
case.
forward, that's a big deal, a really big deal. And by the way, I know a lot about robots. When I was 16, I started the trade. I was a tool maker before I was an engineer. And when I started the trade, the very first thing that I worked on was a Unimate, and that was the first robot ever. And you want to talk about something that would scare the piss out of you continuously. Those old robots were like nasty. But now with the things that Elon's got, and if what I saw is true, if it really is true, okay. So when you have the robot that Elon has shown, it's got a battery pack. You might be able to get power to come to the robot through its feet and stuff like that for induction, but it would be awkward. Something that you could make things happen a lot faster and easier is if you just had it tethered. So it's got a certain amount of area that it can walk around in, and it's got a cable coming down to the robot. Now I got power, I got communication with the rest of the assembly line. I don't have to have a lot of extra communication that could cause, I don't know, a little bit of a problem here and there with signal interference. There's a lot of good things that are happening if what I saw was correct. And I loved the latex fingers. That's another thing. The Utah hand and all these other things they can do, they can juggle an egg and whatnot. But if I've got latex fingers, that's about as close to human fingers as I can get. And that's going to be wizard. The one thing that was really amazing was putting a nut and bolt together with two pieces of steel. Holy shit, I was blown away. That's really hard to do. Really hard. So, and the robot had no problem at all doing it.
One question.
Okay, come on, guys. Come on, man. Come on. He said, from what I saw, he said the latex fingers, putting the metal and the bolts together. None of the demos we saw had that. So,
yep.
I mean, he saw something that we didn't see.
Seeing something different. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, definitely. And he's right. The robot's come a long ways. If he was working with the Unimate, Joe Engelberger's original robot, that was a half hydraulic, half electromechanical robot that was quite the beast that you had to be careful around. And you could not really do a whole lot with that to where we are now. It's almost like, I remember when Apollo 11 was launched, they had someone that was there that, remembered seeing the Wright brothers flying, that had lived long enough from the Wright brothers to, the moon landing, and Sandy's been working with the Unimate robot all the way up to now seeing what Optimus can do. So he's definitely seen there has been quite the evolution. And if the hands have the dexterity to pick up a bolt and put it on there, wow, you're ready to go. That's like a lot of the things that they have to do on the assembly line is doing something like that. And of course, they've set up the assembly lines to make it easier on the workers to almost like, to self bolt or do self riveting, doing all those things, because it's even challenging for people. You're always dropping the bolt and you're under pressure and you cross thread it and do all these other things that, you could just imagine if you've got a bot that can do it. Wow, that would really change the automation scenario that you have on the floor.
Yeah.
Scott, what about the Utah hands? What's that? And the latex fingers. Is that latex something new, or is he referring to the fingertips that we all saw in the demo?
That's what I'm wondering is I'm not sure if he's referring to, is that the material they might be making the hands out of, Hans? Did you get the impression of
Pads.
that, or
That's what I
were those the
was
pads?
thinking. Yeah, it was that those the pads where the sensors are, that the material at the edge of that is a latex, which would make sense. You know, if you're trying to do something with metal components like threading a nut onto a bolt, you have to have something that's got some grip to it. It can't be,
Mhm.
you know, hard plastic, something that's smooth, something that doesn't have you know, grip. And so that was my interpretation. If you combine that then with the, you know, increased data that they have now coming from the sensitivity in those fingertips, you know, that really allows for you to do a lot. One of the thing I think it would be like, just as an engineer, one of the things that would be a cool demonstration of those fingertips specifically is exactly that, putting a nut onto a bolt use case. Like, there's a lot of things that you could do. You know, this is one of 'em, just being able to see, hey, there you've got some data that's coming off of the fingers to tell you, you know, where is the force, what's the magnitude of the force that you're seeing. Um, but the practical demonstration of being able to thread that nut onto a bolt would be an incredible demo to show your boss, like, hey, look what I made this thing do. That, like, that's really
Basically,
hard.
we're seeing that there with the egg. I mean, that's the same kind of dexterity you would need.
But Scott,
The coordination between
Hans,
the two. Yeah,
this
I
is
think you can
not
make that leap.
latex. This is not latex. It doesn't look like latex. And so for him to say latex fingers, he must have seen something different. He must have seen it.
I guess, why do you think it's those black pads are not made out of
Oh,
latex?
I don't know. Doesn't
Yeah,
look
I
like
don't
it.
know.
It doesn't look like it, but it is looking at that task. That task is not that far away from doing the same thing of being able to attach a nut to the end of a bolt. So it seems like the same amount of dexterity that would be there would be required. But yeah, I'm not sure what he meant by the latex, whether it's the pads that they're using, some other, because you know we do see those kind of the black pads underneath there that we do know have sensors built into them, but we also are assuming there's some sort of non-slip surface to make it a little bit easier for things to grab. So it's not metallic. You definitely don't want metallic fingers, and you don't want to have something that's like Han said, a rigid plastic. You probably want to have something that it just has enough friction, but not too much friction to allow you to grab things.
Yeah, kind of tacky.
Yeah, a
We're just
little bit
looking at this
tacky.
closely. It does not look like it's latex. What's a Utah hand, Scott?
It's a yeah. I have to look it up. It's been a while, but it is one of those early mechanical hands that people have been working on to sort of demonstrate the capabilities of different kinds of mechanical hands and what they can and cannot do. And there is like the other hand. I don't know if he's also thinking in the context of like the Rubik's Cube hand that OpenAI had a few years ago, which also was rather an amazing hand uh, with its capabilities of being able to do the Rubik's Cube. And we haven't really seen that actually put into use anywhere, which has always been rather perplexing. And it may be because it was just mechanically too complex for the task, that it was too difficult to be able to control. And you need to find some intermediary between a very simple hand and a very complex hand. And that's what I think we are seeing coming from the Tesla bot, is something that is maybe a bit more useful for the kind of task that you need to have done. Maybe it's not something that you would want to use for doing brain surgery yet, but it's certainly good enough for the automation line.
Okay,
Yeah, I
well,
mean,
Hans,
if
you
they
were.
are shooting for being able to thread a needle, like,
Yep.
even if they're not to thread a needle, they could definitely, like, you can get to the point where you're threading a nut onto a bolt a long time before you can get to threading a needle.
Yes.
And so we know that, you know, this is well within the design specifications of where they're going, and that should, you know, potentially mean that they are close to that here. The other thing that I was going to mention from earlier was just, you know, there was a thread that the head of Figure AI put out the other day, basically
Mhm.
saying that he was pulling in his expectations for when the brains of the figure AI robot were going to catch up. He thought that the hardware development was going to significantly outpace the software development for the figure AI robot, and that based on all of the developments in the field that he's seeing today, he thinks that the software is actually going to keep pace at, at the very least, if not be there sooner than the hardware is finished. Now that doesn't tell us what their development timelines were for the figure AI robot. It could be that that's still 3 years out from now, just depending on how fast they're moving. It seems like they've made relatively rapid progress on their first prototype, so hopefully it's a relatively near term timeline. But that was a huge just validation point, I think, for me to see that someone who's at the edge of doing this work is being surprised to the upside with the development of this neural net functionality in these embodied forms. And we've seen regular stuff getting put out by DeepMind, a number of other places that, what they're finding is that these learning and training mechanisms that have been developed for large language models are much more directly applicable to embodied tasks than anyone previously expected. And we're getting actually, from, especially if you marry it to an actual language model that has some sort of inbuilt general world understanding, that those things have emergent capabilities that are, and I think that's where the surprise is coming, is that, when you're using a large language model that knows what a bottle is, especially if it's multimodal and you've got the vision tied into it, like it knows what a bottle and a table and a nut and a bolt and all these things are, then writing, some planning task in a language that it also understands because it's a large language model. And it's basically just getting really good at super prompting a fine-tuned multimodal LLM to get it to do these serial steps, complex tasks. And that is an incredible win for Tesla because no one else is going to be able to, like, even if someone else hypothetically made better brains than Tesla has, they are not going to reach manufacturing scale with a higher
in
quality
time.
Optimus bot than Tesla
Mhm.
will. And so Tesla is right now in the pole position based on the quality of the prototype that they have, their ability to design for manufacturing, that and I would not be surprised, based on those comments, that the same, Tesla is, Figure AI does not have a better AI team than Tesla has. So if these are the results that a startup is getting,
Yeah.
if these are the results that we're seeing in Google DeepMind, then you can bet your bottom dollar that they're seeing similar things inside of Tesla. We've seen comments from people saying, like, every day when I go into work at the office, it seems like I've been transported into the future by 50 years. And I mean, this is the kind of stuff that they're probably talking about. So yeah, I would not be surprised if Sandy saw something that would really shock the rest of us. And that it was authentic, that it was not CGI, and that it just shows that the future that we already expect is not only on track, but ahead of pace for what expectations are.
Okay. We just lost Scott.
Oh
So,
no, I'm still here.
oh, you're still there?
It's just
Okay.
my car decided that it wanted to time out here for a second,
Gotcha.
so we should be able to get everything.
Let me
Now,
just update people, Scott. So Scott, Walter, and I just did a video. We're going to drop that on Sunday, where we actually compare Figure. The CEO is Brett Adcock. That's who Hans was just referring to. We do a complete comparison, deep dive comparison of that bot along with 4 others against Tesla bot. And then, so what we've done here for those who just tuned in is just this morning, Sandy Munro was being interviewed by Tesla Beat, which is Tesla owner Silicon Valley. Hans Nelson, who's one of our guests here, he was physically there. So what we did was we watched 4 different clips of what Sandy said during that interview. And if you listen carefully, he repeatedly says, based on what I saw. At one point, he did say at the Gigafactory. And then he even talked about how that what I saw was the bot able to put bolts together with a screw that are 2 metal pieces, and that the fingers are latex. These are things we have not yet seen in previous videos. So what we're trying to understand is, was he referring to the same video we all saw, the same demo that they just dropped? Is he talking about something that he has seen physically while he was there at Giga Texas or whatnot? But so far, if you listen carefully to those clips, which I've already played, it sure sounds like he's talking about having seen something that he hadn't seen before. Go ahead, Scott.
Yeah, I just want to jump in for a second, and Herbert, and say, did that sound like a little bit of deja vu there, what Hans was just saying? Because, yes, we just did a video, and I'm wondering if you already showed Hans that video, because he basically came to the same conclusions I did, didn't he? This idea that when you have multimodal AI, that suddenly, if it's not just a large language model, but if you start bringing in these other modes, you get this emergent behavior that maybe it starts learning faster than anyone expected. So the assumption was that when you bring in these other modes, it was going to make the training harder. It may have turned out that's making the training easier. And that in many cases, they're talking about, normally, if you say, like, I have a picture and there's text in the picture, I need to run an OCR. Sorry about this car just deciding to constantly turn the light off. An OCR to convert it to text and then feed that text to a large language model. But the proper way of doing it is that you just show it the picture and it reads the text itself without going in there, without turning it into tokens. And it may be that when you start showing it the real world objects it's been learning about as in a language and makes a connection to it between a language, then it learns a lot faster. And because they're all reading the same papers and they're all working on the same architectures and developing these things, and there's a lot of researchers going from one organization to another, then I think what you're going to see is that you are going to have okay, here's one way. I'll just keep the door open. That what you're going to see is kind of the similar things with everyone saying, wow, I go into work every day and I can't believe it. I cannot believe what I'm seeing.
I think I need to update folks here that we just got word here that we think that Sandy's, what he was just referring just to the video that Tesla put out. It doesn't sound like he's referring to anything more than that. So maybe we have misread what he was saying on those clips. He was referring just to the video that Tesla put out.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And actually, I am on a bit of a timeline here. I'm supposed to be in another spaces at this point anyway. And since I seem to be having such fun with getting the lights to stay on in this car for my illumination, again, sorry that this was sort of a short notice video, and I'm not in a real
problem
studio.
at all. Yeah. But I think so let's say he's still referring to this video that we just all saw. At least he still believes that it's going to be in production by next year. He does still believe that this bot can do anything that a human could do. He's still very, very optimistic about that. And it's interesting to, his thoughts about that. So that's good. We just confirmed that that's not the case. He wasn't referring to something he saw separately from anybody else. We needed to find that out.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes. Okay. So yeah, I just need to drop off. Like I say, I'm overdue to jump into another space. It's been a pretty busy day here for me as well. Thank you for again inviting me, and that I actually was able to take the call this time.
That was wonderful. Okay. Thank you guys. Thanks everybody. Talk to you guys soon. Bye-bye.
Okay. Thank you. Yep. Bye now.